It is now 20 minutes to 9 o'clock, and some stories making headlines where a 21-year-old student, Katanu K, is shaking up with her own interpretation of what art is, utilizing a mix of 2D and 3D art, hyper-realistic painting merged with African print collages. Her style has made her a force to reckon with both online and offline, where art lovers clamor for her masterpieces. Our producer Crystal Onkel caught up with her.
I feel very, blessed by God because of the scenario that I have found myself in. My parents, they don't disregard art as a career. They've managed to take me to a good school where I can, practice my art more. So that aside, I feel like most of the artists that I've spoken to and had a one-on-one with, there have been times that they've gone through huge amounts of struggle, which most Kenyan artists are going through, and I recognize that, and I always tell myself that I want to fix that. My name is Katanu K. I do art. I'm an artist, part-time. I'd actually say my journey started when I was in kindergarten. I used to draw a lot, and I remember when I was still in primary school, I was always getting distracted. Sometimes, okay, not always, but my mind was always focusing on art. And because I was in the 844 system up until class 8, I hadn't really taken art seriously. I wasn't, I would say I was at a very, very amateurish level until I joined high school. Actually joined an IGCSE high school because my parents were advised by the teachers to take me there because it seemed that in the IGCSE system, the British system, I would be able to, they would help me balance out art and studies easily. So while I was in high school, between year 9 and 11, I hadn't started painting yet. I was mostly doing small sketches on paper and doing small watercolor paintings. They weren't like major art pieces. However, I contributed a lot to making posters around the school, and that's when I was recognized for doing a lot of artistic things. You study only one subject thoroughly, like every single thing that needs to be learned about that subject. So for example, BTech art, there I did textiles, I did sculpture, I did, what else was there? Surrealism. There was like a bunch of stuff we learned there. And that's when, I'd say that's where I found my art style more, because that's when I did my first kitenge piece, when we were asked to make African textiles. So I thought, what goes with that? What if someone saw an art piece, what would shout Africa more? First I was like lions, then I was like maybe, yeah, but not really. So then I thought fabric, kitenge. So I used kitenge in the lion piece. I cut out, different shapes. From a distance, you can't really see the shapes, but upon close investigation, you can see really small cuts of, just wavy patterns and all that. So I did that, and it turned out a lot of people liked it. And then that's when my mom found, she was reading the newspaper one day and found a small section, an advertisement for this art gallery at Dusit. And she came home and she's like, "Son, this is really great. They exhibit art, and this would be a good opportunity for you." So I thought, "Mom, no, I'm not professional yet. I can't just exhibit just randomly." The genre of art I do falls under, I would say, is like a mixture of a number of art styles and genres, like hyperrealism because it's 3D and it looks realistic, but it's also 2D, not two-dimensional, but I would call it abstract because when you glue the fabric onto the canvas, it doesn't have that 3D form, so it ends up, it's like a mixture of 2D and 3D. You know how you spark rocks together to create a spark and then it causes a fire. I feel like my dad were those rocks, because I remember as a child, I would always ask my dad to do small little sketches for me. I'd be like, Dad, please draw me a flower, or please draw me a face. And you know, because my dad is artistic as well, he would go an extra step and add details to, for example, if he was going to draw me, he would add the shading and the shadows, and I'd be like, Dad, how do you know where to put the shadows? And he's like, you'll just know, you know. And it used to bug me when I was a kid, because I'm like, how do you just know? Where do you know the shadows fall? But anyway, my dad has always been a great influence, because he has an artist's mind, so he can understand what I'm looking for or what I'm trying to express through a painting. And every single time I do an art piece, my dad is the first person I go to for any form of critique. My art ranges between 50K and 300K, although it depends on the content and the size of the art piece and how much time was put into it. I remember my first art piece was sold at the Dusit exhibition, and I just remember the moment feeling very surreal, because I didn't expect someone to offer me such a large amount of money for something so small. Not so small really, but I just remember feeling I was taken aback, because the first painting I did, while I was doing that painting, it was kind of a commissioned piece. The curator, because I showed him the art piece during the previous exhibition, I couldn't sell it to him, but I told him I could do a replica of that painting and then sell it to him, and he was like, great, awesome. And I just remember him offering me a sum of money, and me thinking, it hadn't, like, you know how something takes a while to register in your brain? Like, when I got home, I was like, oh my God, he just offered me that amount of money. And some artist that had seen the same piece said, oh, it should go for this large amount of money, or this, you know, So anyway, that was my first sale. I remember my first negotiation was the worst negotiation ever, because I was saying I was going to sell it for 25,000, but he came up to me and he was like, you're selling it for 25,000? And I was like, yes. And then he said, give it to me for 20. And then I was like, okay. Like, I just said, okay, flat, because I was like, is that a bad price? Was it, you know, I just remember being very confused. So I just said yes. And then he looked at me like, this girl, honestly, she's gonna be conned so badly because she can't, you know? So we talked some more and we negotiated for 22. And I remember he just paid up front, and that was the first time I had held a $100 bill. I just remember looking at it and thinking, I could get so much food with this. You know, the thing is that the exhibition would run for 6 hours. So most of the time you're just sitting there waiting for people to come by, you know, because people would walk past paintings just looking at them. So if somebody looked interested, you'd go up to them and you'd go, you know, engage them and say, hi, do you like art? What would you like to buy? And they're like, oh, you're the one that painted this? And then, you know, and I noticed that most art buyers or people that are interested in art are mostly interested in what the painting, like the story behind the painting and what influenced it, like, because most of the questions I'm asked are, what inspired you to paint this? And then you explain that, they ask. And another question is, how long did it take you to do this? I noticed people value time, and not time as in, okay, how would I explain? I feel like people value the time artists put into creating something beautiful.
But this one is okay.
Yeah, the rest are like straight.
Then it has more of the fabrics than the other ones.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, yeah, that makes it more colorful, more lively.
Yeah, I took a different turn with this one. The exhibition will be running for, today's day 2, so it'll be running for 6 more days or 5 more days, I think. Well, what I hope to achieve is just to inspire people really, and to, you know, get more exposure so I can like finally properly sink my teeth into the art scene, the Kenyan art scene once I graduate from college and I'm back. And yeah, that's what I hope to achieve.
My name is Tom Siembe. I'm the art curator here at the Current Country Club. I've been here for the last 3 years, but in the art scene for much, much longer than that. And during the 3 years, we have exhibited quite a number of artists. Katanu is the latest exhibition that we are having here. And so far, the response that we've got is fabulous. Oh, she's very, very, very original, especially the way she uses the fabrics and blends them with the acrylics and the oils is something a little bit different in the local scene, you know. It's quite innovative, you see. And hopefully, you know, she will follow that direction. And I think she has a very bright future.
There were a couple of tourists that were coming in from Australia to Kenya, and just before they got to Kenya, they had heard about this Kenyan artist who does artwork, which they really liked. So they came over and, you know, we made some negotiations and I sold them some art as well. So I feel like through social media, I have gained a lot of exposure, more than I thought I did. Another example would be a school from South Africa has invited me to go and speak at their school as a keynote speaker about art and how I use social media to share my artwork with the world. I love watching movies and documentaries or hanging out with friends. I enjoy cooking or taking my dog for a walk. If you are a young artist that wants to make it big, or, you know, if you want your art to improve, I would say keep doing sketches, keep practicing. I know it sounds cliche, but it's actually true. The more sketches you do and the more you experiment with art styles and, you know, just art and mediums, you find yourself getting better and better as time goes. And then you'll find yourself accidentally running into a style that you actually never thought you'd be doing. Because for me, I'd never thought that I'd be using fabric in my work. I just thought that I had this very specific way of looking at good art. You know, it was, for me, good art was always work that looks realistic, work that looks lifelike. But art is so broad, it doesn't even have to be on paper or canvas. It can be on a tree, or it could be a carving, or anywhere. Art is limitless.
Nice way to end. Art is limitless, and that's absolutely true. And she's doing a fantastic, wonderful job. It's now 4 minutes to 9 o'clock. Time for me to say goodbye. Thank you so very much for watching Morning Express. Do have yourselves a wonderful day. God bless.
This is KTN News.